Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever seen it? Someone reads, say, a complex paragraph out loud, just perfectly. I mean, the inflection, the rhythm, zero mistakes. And then you ask them about it and nothing, blank slate. They didn't retain a single bit of information. That's the powerful paradox we're exploring today. We're looking at hyperlexia and really why we need to stop seeing this reading profile as some kind of, I don't know, heartbreaking puzzle and start seeing it for what it is, a completely legitimate, even powerful pathway to literacy.
It really is a crucial shift we need to make. For so long, the way we teach, the system itself, has essentially labeled this way of processing language as, well, as a failure, or even a type of functional illiteracy.
Right.
Just because the understanding part doesn't follow the expected schedule.
Right.
But what we're likely seeing is just a different system. It's operating on its own timeline, a deferred one, but, equally valid.
Yeah, I can connect with this personally. I remember when I was teaching primary school, I was testing a fourth grader. He picked up this book. It was a pretty dense historical passage, actually, and he just started reading. The fluency. It's almost uncanny, like listening to a professional narrator. His prosody was spot on, smooth rhythm. He could have gone on for pages. And the testing tool we were using, the machine, scored him brilliantly on decoding, on pace.
So on paper, analytically speaking, he was nailing it, ticking all the boxes.
Totally. But then I put the book down. I asked him, so what was that paragraph about? And just nothing. Silence. No details, no theme, not even a flicker of recall. It's like the whole passage just vanished the second the sound stopped. He was, and this phrase really stuck with me, he was performing reading, not really inhabiting. That's hyperlexia, right? That core thing. Amazing decoding, flawless surface. But the comprehension, it just didn't land, not right away.
That experience really highlights the paradox, doesn't it? And for decades, that gap, that space between the perfect performance and the apparently absent meaning, it's been seriously mislabeled. What you are likely witnessing is a very clear example of Gestalt Language Processing, GLP. The language is taken in whole, absorbed first for its rhythm, its patterns, Without that immediate word-by-word breakdown that analytical processors do, the comprehension isn't missing, it's just lagging. It's waiting for the rest of the system to kind of catch up.
Okay, so that's our goal today then, to really reframe hyperlexia. We want you listening to see it not as a problem needing a fix, but as this GLP pathway where fluency and meaning, well, they're intentionally decoupled for a time. But let's start where most people probably are with the traditional view. For years, the clinical shorthand for hyperlexia was this really intriguing phrase, precocious decoding with poor comprehension.
Yeah, that phrase, it's such a window into how it was seen, isn't it? Because it holds both fascination, like, wow, look at this early skill, but also immediate dismissal.
Right, the precocious part acknowledges the talent.
Exactly, but then poor comprehension just pulls the rug out. It implies the reading itself is somehow empty, maybe even fake, hollow.
And that idea that it's somehow counterfeit reading, that seems key. Why was it so hard for early researchers to just accept the fluency at face value? If the decoding is perfect, why not trust that?
Well, simply put, it didn't fit the dominant model. The established theory of analytic literacy. If you look at, say, the work by Murdoch, Garton, and Rao back in 2004, they documented it, absolutely.
Right.
But they framed the hyperlexic child as an anomaly, something that needed to be corrected, steered back towards what they considered normal comprehension. The underlying assumption was always deficit. Something's wrong here because that step-by-step phone-to-word-to-meaning process isn't visible in real time.
Okay, but if we challenge that assumption, like you said earlier, the idea that analytic processing is the only way, how does that help resolve this apparent paradox? Where does GLP fit into this reframing?
GLP basically makes the paradox disappear. Because from a GLP perspective, hyperlexia isn't strange at all. It's one of the clearest signs that a Gestalt system is the primary driver. The child isn't failing at analytic reading. They're actually succeeding brilliantly at their own way of acquiring language.
I like the analogy used in our source material here, comparing the two systems.
It's a good one. Think about it like this. Analytic processing is like carefully laying bricks. You go phone to grapheme, sound to letter, then word by word, sentence by sentence, building meaning piece by piece.
Very methodical.
Very. Gestalt processing, though, is more like taking in the whole house at once, or maybe even the whole landscape. You absorb the overall shape, the rhythm, the structure, the feel of it, before you necessarily know what each specific brick does, or what's in every room.
So analytic dissects, Gestalt absorbs. Okay, so hyperlexia isn't a contradiction then.
Yeah.
It's more like a signal, a sign that the brain is busy collecting massive amounts of language.
Exactly. Collecting it in bulk, it's incubation, storing it away.
And that incubation, it follows a specific sequence, right? The GLP timeline you mentioned.
Yes, and it's crucially nonlinear, or maybe recursive is a better word. It doesn't just go A to B to C. It starts with store. That's where huge archives of language, entire scripts, texts are taken in with that incredible fluency you saw, just vacuumed up.
Okay, store first, then what?
Then comes pattern. The brain starts noticing repetitions. Those stored phrases and scripts begin to echo against each other. Rhythms align, common structures, linguistic patterns emerge from the data.
It's finding the common threads in the archive.
Precisely. And only then, often quite a bit later, and this is the crucial part, does the system begin to retroactively map meaning. Understanding starts to settle across those stored scripts, layering meaning onto the patterns it's identified. The really vital thing for listeners to grasp here is that this comprehension lag, it's temporal. It's about time. It is not intellectual. It's not about capacity or intelligence.
That makes me think of Nancy Bell's early work, from '91, I think. She talked about comprehension relying on Gestalt imagery, that ability to form these internal wholes that seems to point directly at what hyperlexic GLPs are doing. They're holding the whole structure in their mind, waiting for the map of meaning to get drawn onto it later.
Absolutely. And once you name it like that, see it as a prime expression of GLP, the mystery kind of dissolves, doesn't it? What looks like this baffling puzzle, perfect reading, no immediate understanding becomes totally legible. You just have to accept that for this system, the gestalts, the wholes, need to be gathered before they can be fully interpreted.
But living with that apparent puzzle before you understand it, that is a real human cost. And this brings us to the burnout trap. For many hyperlexic GLPs, reading isn't just a skill, it's almost like a compulsion, a deep hunger. They just devour books. But then, when the comprehension lags, when they can't give the teacher the summary she wants right after reading, that natural drive starts to feel pointless. Or worse. The analytic world around them can dismiss all those internalized scripts and rhythms as just empty echoes.
And that dismissal, that constant questioning, feeds directly into this deeply damaging internalized shame. When the comprehension scores keep coming back low, despite the obvious fluency, you get parents, teachers wondering, is the child just faking the reading? Are they showing off? But there's nothing behind it.
And that's rough.
It is. And that external doubt quickly turns inward. It metastasizes into this devastating self-talk. Maybe I am broken. Maybe something's wrong with my mind. Maybe I'm just fooling everyone, including myself.
It's really hard to hear that the very systems designed to foster literacy could actually be inflicting that kind of emotional damage. How does this misunderstanding scale up? How does it become actual structural harm?
It becomes structural harm because our educational institutions, our assessment methods, they're largely built on the wrong timeline, at least for these learners. Think about the big push for the science of reading. It's almost entirely analytic in its focus. It emphasizes that linear, step-by-step progression. There's very little room systemically for Gestalt language processors. And our standardized tests, they punish that comprehension lag relentlessly. You don't recall it now, then you're deficient. End of story.
Connecting that to the bigger picture. It almost sounds like we're trying to apply factory assembly line standards to how minds develop.
That's a really good way to put it. These educational models align almost perfectly with what our sources term capitalist or Taylorist timelines. It's all about productivity now, immediate, quantifiable output. The child who reads 50 books but can't instantly paraphrase Chapter 3 on demand, well, they're deemed inefficient. Their incredible capacity for absorption, their veracity, it gets discounted because it doesn't produce immediate, easily measurable value in the expected format.
One of the sources uses a really powerful term here, epistemic violence. For someone hearing that phrase for the first time, what does the source material mean by saying the system treats the very structure of a child's mind as fraudulent?
It means that by refusing to recognize this different recursive rhythm of comprehension as legitimate, the dominant culture is essentially invalidating the child's entire way of knowing. It's telling them that their internal timing, the way their mind naturally processes language, is fundamentally wrong, defective, fraudulent, and that forces the child to either try and mask their natural process, which is exhausting and often impossible, or to internalize that sense of being fundamentally broken. That leads to real trauma.
Okay, so faced with that kind of systemic harm, the really crucial question is, How do we help unlock that massive archive of language they've already built up inside? How do we help meaning finally connect?
Well, we definitely know what doesn't work. More drills on short passages, more fragmented recall questions trying to slice the text into tiny analytic pieces. That usually just reinforces the frustration and the feeling of failure.
Right. Forceful dissection isn't the answer.
No. Meaning seems to emerge through resonance, not remediation. The archive starts to open up when the child feels seen, when their pathway is validated, maybe reflected back to them by a mentor, a teacher, a parent who gets it, someone who understands the long game they're playing.
A mentor who provides the map the system didn't.
Exactly. They don't try to fix the child's system, they work with it. There are specific strategies, like using SRSD, that's self-regulation strategy development. It often involves think-alouds. A mentor might model not just how they process text, but also the emotional side. They might share their own rough drafts, talk about their own struggles, show the long timelines where meaning takes its time to arrive for them, too.
So it's about modeling patience and validating the process. That provides the counterscript they need, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's the vital positive narrative that pushes back against all that internalized shame. It says, you are not broken, your mind works differently, and that's okay. Your huge archive of language isn't empty, it's just waiting for the right connections. Making this shift, it's not just a teaching technique, it's a fundamental reclamation of their identity, their joy in reading, their confidence.
And you can almost feel the need for this. I mean, you see echoes of it online, right? Even in things like hyperlexia memes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those memes often frame it negatively or maybe just superficially, like it's just a quirky trait or a party trick to read fast without understanding. But underneath that, you sense this real hunger for validation, for community, for stories that show, yes, this is real, and yes, you can flourish with this kind of mind. They desperately need mentorship and models that go beyond just the deficit terms.
So bringing this all together then, that's a big takeaway for everyone listening. This paradox, reading perfectly but not understanding immediately. It's not a failure, it's a signature of a different but totally legitimate path to literacy.
Exactly. The lag is an absence. The delay isn't a defect.
Understanding hyperlexia through the lens of GLP means we affirm that whole arc.
Yeah.
The storing before meaning, the patterning before analyzing, the recursion before defining. It's all part of a valid developmental rhythm.
And those years of reading, seemingly without comprehension, they weren't wasted time at all. They were essential. They were the gathering phase, collecting the fuel, the raw material, for the fire of understanding that comes later.
The long road is still a road. And the promise, it sounds like, is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
When that archive finally does open up, maybe late by the standard analytic clock, but right on schedule for the Gestalt clock, the meaning doesn't just trickle in.
No. It pours. It can be a flood, a breathtaking integration of all that stored language.
Wow.
And, this raises a broader question for all of us, I think, not just for those who identify as hyperlexic or GLP. When any of us encounter really complex material, maybe a dense scientific paper, a difficult piece of philosophy, even complex instructions, are we allowing our own internal archive enough time? Time to process the structure, the patterns, before we rush to pin down an immediate analytic definition or summary. Maybe we all need to resist that pressure for instant comprehension, that demand for immediate productivity in our own learning. Give the incubation the time it needs. Because when the insights do arrive, they often pour, not trickle.